Um, Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, they said that culture forms organically. That's a quote from Dr. Okere. You only know that you have achieved a lot when you can be quoted. So if you have not, I look forward to having a permanent head damage in the future very soon. I'm encouraged. We were having a conversation just the other day, and they were like, that fits you. I thought actually he was going to give me a suit that it fits me like a suit, but no. He actually told me that I need to have permanent head damage. I look forward to it. Your Excellency, the ambassador, the Finnish ambassador to Kenya, you're most welcome. With us today, we have the Finnish ambassador, invited guests. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Good morning once more. Good morning. Allow me to be official because I have a dignitary to welcome to stage in the next few seconds to give us his keynote address. Remember, Hofstede Insights is domiciled in Finland, and I would wish to go to Finland in the next few months. So make me get that visa by welcoming His Excellency, the Ambassador, to give us his keynote speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here. I'll, from the onset, say that I cannot promise visas. If I would, my head of visa section would eviscerate me or do something as sort of pleasant as that, because indeed, as I was talking about the Finns and what we are like, so one of the things we are very rules-based, and we have very clear procedures, and I have to say that it is easy to come to Finland, it's easy to do business with Finland, as long as you play by the rules and not with the rules, and that I think goes for the visa application as well. That was a quote, and you said that you made it if you get quoted. I'm still wanting to get quoted one day, but that was a quote from my former boss, whose advisor I was for a long time, who was mediating conflicts between politicians in all kinds of countries, mainly Eastern Europe, and he would always say, after everybody had sort of tried to play in one way or another, and he was not Finnish but Spanish, but he sort of said, come on, just play by the rules, not with them, okay? Now, I am delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be here especially for the launch of the Hofstede Insights, and let me note on the side of culture that this is something extremely close to my heart. It's close to my heart because it's my job as well. What does a diplomat first and foremost do? Issue visas? Well, not really that much. Promote businesses. Thank goodness we have people like Esa who are doing that on a very practical, everyday level. But we are there to act as interpreters. Because we have our own bosses and our own politicians and our own decision makers in capitals, and they follow, I mean, things have become much more difficult. They follow something horrible called Twitter, and they see something happening in the world. And they interpret that very easily from their own viewpoint, from this is how people think, this is how we function universally. And if they slightly deviate from their universal approach, they very often do it in a way that they take the kind of book which Esa talked about, doing business in, or the sort of collected stereotypes of the aliens outside our border, and they try to apply that. And very often they get it wrong. So basically what the role of diplomats has been since centuries, and it was easier when Twitter was not there because you actually were given some time to do the translation, was to explain that how the world looks from somewhere else where you are. And that's where the work of companies like Hofstede Insights becomes so incredibly important. Because you need to really get to that culture. You need to get to what that culture actually is and what people are actually like. I will tell you, and as I mentioned there, that in China, and I was ambassador of the European Union to Thailand before, so I know Asia quite well. This is my first stint in Africa. But there is this sort of stereotypical advice which you get that this is how you work with the Thais, this is how you work with the Chinese, this is how you work with the Finns. And you know what? Most of it is not true. You actually have to go deep into that culture to understand how you really can work. Example, you cannot be conflictual in Thailand. Yes, you can if you are assertive and if you have an issue which you need to solve. Second, we Finns don't have a sense of humor. We are extremely boring. We're very quiet. We don't talk. I mean, there's silence everywhere. We're just sort of very serious and we don't act in that. Now you go to Helsinki and you take a taxi from the airport. You'll be bankrupt by the time you get to the center because of the taxi prices, but you'll also be deaf because I don't know any other country with as chatty taxi drivers as you have in Helsinki. You cannot be quiet for a moment. They will start the moment you get in and so on. And that's the very quiet Finns for you. Then there's the winter Finn and the summer Finn. I prefer the summer Finn. Well, I prefer the summer weather. That's why I'm in Nairobi. So getting it right and getting the right nuance and getting the right depth in terms of culture is important. And I don't think it is sort of a big surprise that while Hofstede Insights was originally a Dutch company, that it has become a Finnish one through an acquisition by Seppo Savolainen, a Finnish IT entrepreneur, in 2012. And it also shows, in addition to that, that we are a world leader and we're damn well good in the IT sector. And by the way, you saw from Esa's presentation how fantastically good we are. Another Finnish stereotype is that we're very modest and we can't say anything good about ourselves. You just listen to this guy, we can, in fact. Of course, the difference with others is that when we say it, it's true. When others say it, it's not necessarily. So, but we are up there in the north, but we're global, we're international. I haven't been to a single country in the world where I've been accredited, including a country like Myanmar, without finding Finns, not just diplomats, but Finns actually working, doing business and living there. So we are curious, we're interested, we're going out there. And here we are now, also with a new Africa strategy from last year, in Africa, wanting to double our economic footprint within the next decade. And also in that context, it is so good to see a Finnish company, one more Finnish company here in the Kenyan market. And in 2019 already, with the support of Team Finland, Hofstede Insights launched its Africa regional office in Lagos, Nigeria. This was very successful. And they've expanded to Ghana, Ethiopia, and now Kenya. And it's good that you have a presence not just in the West. Sometimes you have to look east, and we believe in the possibilities and opportunities of East Africa. There's a lot going for this region. Now, ladies and gentlemen, going back to culture, Peter Drucker, the management guru, used to say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this gets me back to the original point of the tweet. And the same challenges with businesses and diplomacy meets. You can have a strategy, but if you don't understand what you're dealing with, well, bye-bye strategy, bye-bye profit, bye-bye peace, bye-bye political relations, economic relations, others. So the work which has been done by Hofstede Insights is incredibly important, and it is work which I think we should all embrace. And it's so good to see so many people in this room, including prominent business leaders, because we need to understand you, you need to understand us, we need to understand each other, and that's where we need this know-how. So with these words, Karibu Kenya, welcome to Kenya, and dear friends, asante sana, kiitos, merci.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We do it better than that in Kenya, right? Because he already knows that. He lives here. So a round of applause to the ambassador. Thank you very much, because that's our culture. It says that we need to get our culture to become. And as I invite on stage, Dr. Okechukwu Okere, please.
This is for a picture?
Yes.
A picture. Okay.
A picture.
I thought I was being called into the principal's office.
Mr. George Ndonji, Mr. Esa. It's just a photo session, ladies and gentlemen. There's no principal. If there's any principal, yeah. Would you want us to stay somewhere or come down? Where do you want us to be?
Should we come down?
Excuse my manners. I'm not very good in photography.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I have to say that one other thing, I'll just take that, one other thing which is very good, which is punctuality and efficiency, and that I was quite wonderful. So I'm really grateful for all that punctuality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So, we have a commercial break. And whenever you have a commercial break, what do you see on your TV? A presenter trying to align themselves, but you don't see that, it's behind the scenes. A presenter trying to adjust their coats and ties, and many, many other things happening. And that's why they make jokes, actually. And the jokes do happen. What did you take from Dr. Okey's presentation? In every class, there is an investment, right? What's our take home? Did we learn anything about culture? Okay, the yes is loud. Eh? So what did we learn about culture? Yes? Culture is measurable. Scientifically, yes, it's measurable, okay. The other hand,
in evaluating cultures, you need to go down to the smaller subsection. So you don't have one big culture.
there are subcultures, right? Good. Yes. What gets measured can be managed. But there is a theory that culture is so innate that you can't measure it. But the impact of culture, can be measured because you will see the results. Culture is strategy for breakfast. And then culture will be full. Right? So when culture is full, if you have a lousy culture, what happens? That no one cares. I can just come, hang my coat, and then I go sell vegetables behind, those downs, Yamakima and wherever. Work will continue with or without me. Work will continue, right? That I can actually come to the office, but I wait for the 4 p.m., 5 p.m., I swing my bag, I go, or I take my coat and leave. Still work will be done, right? There was low motivation to work, and then low motivation to stay. Decide where you want to be, because I have a Nigerian friend here, so I have the right to actually use the word "oh" if you like. We have had an opportunity, and the way we do it, us as Finnish, because those guys are few, 5.5 million. I want to actually join them in Finland in September. 5.5 million, they are very few. We can add, that's Nairobi. That's Nairobi and its environment, so 5.5 million. But they're efficient because we have been told that what they don't have is corruption. Right? Is corruption a culture? Is it? Because culture forms organically. In our organizations, what are the small things that really brings the culture in place? We don't follow policy, right? We don't have procedures, we don't have guidelines, or we have them, but come on, who cares? The CEO doesn't follow it. The executive, or what I call the COO, or the EXCO, the entire EXCO. You call for meetings, they're the ones who come, like I saw on paper, not in this country. Some people visited somewhere. All the Americans had notebooks and pens. Only Kenyans did not have. Because we are used to secretaries taking the notes for us, but we cannot take. But that's a culture. Is it not a culture? And then after the meeting, you'll ask, what was the discussion? But you forgot secretary didn't travel with you. So we didn't take notes. The other culture that we see in organizations that the CEO or the executive is all right. The rest of you are there to be seen, not to be heard. But if we choose to think about you, then we'll say you existed. But only when we have fired you. Culture is important. But most of us don't choose to have the right culture in place. We don't want to make sure we create that environment. And that's why we are here in this part of the world to actually, Dr. K, you're putting something.
Yeah, it's just...
Okay. So we are actually here to engage. My colleagues must have talked to you. If anyone who is present here today would want to have a deep conversation about what we are offering, please don't leave without getting us your contacts. We'll be able to meet with you. Unfortunately, this week we will not be around. We are actually having a workshop in Naivasha starting tomorrow. By the end of the week, we are back. So anyone who would wish to have a meeting, we are back on Monday. We are open to start conversations, meetings. We are more than willing to have a masterclass with at least one organization within the week. And what did you say is the criteria for the organization that is getting a masterclass? The criteria that you want to have for the masterclass?
Just if we have the executives ready, if they want to embark on real change in the organization, then we'll be happy to talk to them to have that.
Okay, if you feel that you are ready and you want to, we are here. My colleagues are all there. We have, we have a lobby there, and we can have a discussion. Any of my colleagues, if you see anyone with this, then that means you can get in touch with them. We will be here to serve. Someone was raising their hand. Did you? Yes. Ah, good. Ladies and gentlemen, at this, okay, Tony?
Just a question, a follow-up question on Dr. Kay's presentation. You mentioned something which I'm still thinking about. You said there is neither a good or a bad culture. I would like to clarify that. And just to follow up on that, how then do you... Thank you. Check, 1, 2. Oh, okay. How do you initiate a culture change in an organization? Like, say, for example, if you are a consultant, do you approach an organization and say, you guys have a really bad culture, I would like to help you change it? Or does the organization realize by itself that we have a bad culture and we need to change it? Kindly clarify on the two issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I didn't catch your name. Could you help me with your name?
Olaka.
Olaka.
Yes.
Okay, and the name of your organization, sir?
It's called Teams That Win Consultants.
Okay. Teams That Win. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Olaka. Teams That Win. Okay. I don't know exactly what is going on there, but it sounds exciting. So, this is the question that Mr. Olaka asked. I talked about good cultures and bad cultures, and I said that there's no good culture and there's no bad culture. Now, how many people have watched the movie about Steve Jobs? The movie on Steve Jobs? I don't know if you've ever seen that movie about Steve Jobs. Yeah. Was it the sort of character you would have liked to work with? Yeah, most people who have watched that movie were like, I never would have liked to work with such a human being. But the organization he started is one of the most successful organizations today. In many contexts, if you take the culture of Apple, the culture that Steve Jobs built in Apple, and you take it into other organizational contexts, it would fail. It would fail. So what do we mean? There's been a lot of talk about toxic cultures, but what appears to be toxic in one organization happens to be what would help another organization to succeed. The literal saying, one man's meat is another man's poison. So one organization's culture that helps them optimal culture is another organization's toxic culture. So what we do with organizations is that we help organizations to try to find, on the 6 dimensions that I talked about, we try to help them find where they should be on this continuum. So when you see dimension 1, for instance, organizational effectiveness, some organizations should be scoring around 100 on organizational effectiveness, to be very goal-oriented. Some other organizations have to be scoring somewhere around 35 or 40 or 50 because of their strategy. So a good example, for instance, if you are a regulatory organization, you cannot afford to be extremely goal-oriented. If you're a regulatory organization, why is that so? Anybody who can tell me? Why can't I? Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
The rigidity of
The legal system and the implications. A nuclear power plant cannot afford to be extremely goal-oriented because they have to follow process. Yeah? So if they miss out on the process, even though they achieve their goals, they could end the lives of millions of people. I hope that's clear. So you cannot run a nuclear power plant the way you would run Google or Microsoft. You cannot run a particular organization the way you would run another. So the trick is to find the culture that works for you as an organization, and it must be aligned with your strategy. And important as well, simply because we are in the same industry doesn't mean that we have to have the same culture. Again, I use Apple and Microsoft in the same industry. They don't have the same culture. And why is that so? They have different strategies, they have different types of leaders, they have a different set of human beings working for them. So what we do is to help you use data to identify the kind of culture you need to have, and then we also measure the one you currently have so that you can change it. And that leads me to the second question. How do we change culture? Now, you can't change something without knowing what to change. So I'm going to give a very terrible scenario. If you have a headache, yeah, and you go to the doctor and you say, I have a headache, and the doctor says, okay, I need to cut it open so I can see what is the problem before I can now prescribe to you. If the doctor tells you that, how would you feel? You run away, because you know that you could die in the process of the diagnosis. So what we do, first of all, is to help you with a diagnosis